I'm Ed Amorosa from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with my friend Menachem Shafran, who is the Vice President of Product at XM Cyber. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to hearing about the company and about you and all kinds of things related to breach and attack simulation. I think I'm going to learn something today.
I hope you do, and I hope it's going to be a great conversation. We'll have lots of fun.
It's going to be good. Now let's start with, before we get into the technology, tell me about the company. You were telling me earlier about the origins, and very interesting.
Yeah, well, XM Cyber was founded by a very unique founding team. You know, most, at least in Israel, most Israeli cybersecurity startup, they are very, very young people coming just from the army. So in our case, the founding team also came from the Israeli intelligence forces. But in this specific situation, it's actually very, very senior executives that were struggling with the problems in cybersecurity before in their job as executives. So the executive team are people that have very, very high experience. They have proven themselves to be able to build large, exciting companies with vast experience. So, for example, our president is Tamir Pardo. He was the head of the Mossad,
right.
And in their previous roles, they were struggling with a very, very important question for every military or every high for organization. They were asking, are my critical assets really, really secure? And in cybersecurity, you invest so much in different solutions, but in the end, you can't really answer these simple questions. Am I secure? Is everything working fine? And they wanted to answer this question. So they came to found this team, 3 founders, Noam Erez, our CEO.
Right.
Tamir, as I mentioned, and Boaz, who was our CTO. He was the CTO also for the Israeli intelligence forces, so both the offensive part and the defensive part.
They're very impressive people. I've had a chance to spend time, and they're super impressive. Really capable people.
Yeah, so that's one thing, and they brought with them the culture of the Israeli intelligence forces. So most of the company are young people coming from the offensive cyber, because what we do as a breach and attack simulation, we mimic adversaries. So we need people that know how hackers are actually thinking and working. So we have a lot of people from the offensive cyber background, very, very young people that are innovative, always spinning new ideas, how we can do things different, how we can do things better. So this is the balance between, the senior people with the executive, with the experience, and the young people with the idea, the passion and everything. And I think this creates really a very unique culture of a company, which is great to work at.
That's good, because you're right. Most startups they tend to be led by people who haven't done it before, or maybe haven't managed a team. That is a very unique setup.
Yep.
So it's working out well. Team headquartered in Israel.
Yes, headquartered in Israel, in Tel Aviv. Yeah.
And doing, I would imagine, quite a bit of business here in the U.S. now.
So most business is in the U.S., in Europe, in the U.K., and obviously in Israel. So those are the focus point of the company, but we're growing globally. So this is great. Great.
Well, now let's get into the technology. So some people would be familiar with the moniker breach and attack simulation. That's one of these categories that comes from the Gartner and analysts and so on. But tell us, how do you describe what you guys do, and what's the value that you bring to an enterprise that buys XM Cyber?
Yeah, so really what XM Cyber, and in that manner, we're a bit of a unique animal in the breach and attack simulation. We come to answer the simple question of, are the critical assets really secure? So, for example, you've been a CISO, you've been executive in IT, and the board comes and asks you a question. They don't know what's an EDR. They don't know you in bot threat intelligence. They want to answer, okay, I have customer data, I have all this information. Is it secure? So what you do today is you answer them, well, we invested $1 million in buying a new vendor, a new software, and we're hoping it's gonna protect us.
That's correct.
But you're not answering the question. You're basically avoiding the real question of, are we secure?
You've decoded our approach, but you're right. You do bypass it, because it's been a very difficult question. And it is always that question. And it's always some version of, are we secure? Are we okay?
Are we okay?
Yeah.
So XM Cyber, that's what we want to answer for you. And in that term, we're a bit of a unique animal. So we want to tell you, what we'll do is basically, we created a solution which mimics an adversary in your network, basically showing you how hard it is for an adversary landing on a random point, let's say on someone from marketing, someone from HR, how it is for them to actually reach the critical data, the customer information, the CEO's computer, for example. You want to answer that question, and you want to answer that question continuously and safely. Okay, so today you have manual red team exercises, which is great. You do manual red team exercise, you bring this team, they come, they do this large exercise, you do it once a year, you get this huge report. By the time you actually, and this is very valuable, but by the time you actually finish understanding and implementing the report, your network is completely different. So we are telling people you need to test all the time, and gradually improve your security posture. So think about it like going to the doctor once a year and asking him, can you please fix me, versus living a healthy lifestyle. You need to exercise, you need to take care of yourself, you need to always make sure that you are doing things right. So this is what XM Cyber comes to do. And in that term, I think we're a bit of a unique in the breach and attack simulation.
Yeah, makes sense. Now you say control validation a lot. What's a control? Is it like a firewall? Is it an IT thing? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so in your network you have different security controls. Security controls be procedures.
Yeah.
Your IT are going to connect to computers using in a specific mechanism. They're not going to use the domain admin for different stuff that they don't require. And it might be solutions. So you might have an EDR, you might do patching, you might do threat intelligence. So you have all those things that's supposed to guard your network. Those are the security controls. And really, if you look at the breach and attack simulation market, you see many vendors that are focused on answering this question: are my security controls properly configured? And that's a great question, and it's important, because obviously if you buy an EDR and it's not configured right, then what's the point?
Not configured right means I've purchased something, a next generation firewall or something, and I've embedded it in the network, but it's either the rule set is wrong, or it's in the wrong place, or it's not connected to the right other system. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Operator error.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I mean, you have this next generation firewall, but if you didn't update the signature, or if you open the port, and then it's not really protecting you.
Right.
So it's good and it's important, and you need to always test that, and that's part of what XM Cyber does. But in contrary to other vendors.
By the way, how do you know what the right configuration is? Do you guys have to be the experts?
So what we do,
that seems hard to do.
So what we do is basically, we're not coming to tell you, oh, you have configured it right. There is the best practices of how you actually configure. We're simulating an adversary, trying to get from a random point towards the critical assets. And from that, you can start understanding, oh, wait, he managed to make a lateral movement between this network segment and that network segment. So why is that? Isn't my firewall supposed to block him? Why could he connect that way? Or we've seen him, okay, so he managed to hijack an RDP session, but didn't we install two-factor authentication? Oh, we didn't implement it on that server. So that's what we're showing. We'll show you the attack vector from the breach point towards the critical asset.
So like in a retail environment, could they use XM Cyber to convince the control team, the security team, that say from the intranet or enterprise, you can't see the credit card point of sale machines? Is that something you could do? So like convince the board, look, there's no way our third parties coming in through a gateway can see POS machines.
So you can tell the system to start from that segment in the network.
Because that'd be pretty valuable, obviously.
And try to reach. And it will try. That's what it will do in a continuous and safe manner. So that's obviously very important, because let's say you're gonna come, and when you do like manual exercises, red team exercises, you bring a penetration testing firm, and they're gonna try to get from that place to the PCI segment, and they'll tell you, well, 1% chance that we're gonna crash something. So you can say, well, 1% chance, it's not gonna happen for me. I'm not gonna be that 1%. But imagine that we're telling you now, test every day. So that 1% becomes 3 times a year. So you have to find a way that you can actually test those things in a way that is completely safe. And then you can come and tell the board, we're running a test every day. Can someone actually get from whatever area in the network to the PCI segment? And the answer will be no. Now you can come and tell that to the board, and that's amazing. So
what's a deployment look like? Am I dropping agents, sensors, components around the network?
Yes.
And how do I know where to put them?
So basically, the way XM Cyber works is by deploying sensors on the endpoints and servers.
Yeah.
The reason we do that is in order for us to be able to balance between the safety and the accuracy. Okay, the fact that we're actually having those sensors on the endpoints and servers allows us to test all the conditions to validate. Okay, an adversary can actually do something without requiring us to actually activate real exploit, which one might crash the system. Obviously, very low chance of crashing the system, but as we said before, 3 times a year is not that low for a CISO. So you'll deploy that. Usually about 10% of your network at least. Obviously, the more you deploy, the better. But what we found out is that if you take about 10%, some servers, some endpoints, people from IT, you'll get a good accuracy of what's my positioning in the network. You will find most of the important attack vectors and most of the issues that you actually need to remediate. And that is great news. That is great news because now you can actually start looking at prioritizing. We said, okay, you deploy those things and you tell the system to run every day. Now you see, okay, how hard it is for an adversary to get to the critical assets which you defined. And you can see, so I see that in all the attack vectors, eventually they come and leverage this misconfiguration. They get to this guy from IT and he has too many permissions. Or you find choke points, or you find information that actually helps you prioritize what you're doing. And in cybersecurity, finding problems and stuff that we need to improve is easy.
That's true.
You talk to every CISO and ask him, do you have enough stuff that you need to improve, to fix? And look at it. So the key thing is to understand what is most important. What is most important? What will actually make the most change in my security posture? So this is another great benefit, I think, from the perspective of the product. Yeah, but the deployment is, as we said, very, very simple. Yeah. You deploy the sensors. They connect to the server, either on-prem sensitive environments like banks, but either or in our cloud. So
now the scenarios you run, are they driven by any frameworks like the MITRE ATT&CK or some other sort of popular frameworks that lay out these taxonomies of attacks? Do you guys make use of those, or do you have your own?
So we make use of those. Basically, we link and relate all the findings, all the methods that we use to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Yeah. So you can, if you're
It's been
working,
very popular.
It's been very popular. Yeah. I think it's doing great stuff for the industry. I think it still has a long way to go and improve. There are different things that are not there yet. For example, just yesterday I was talking to someone and asked, okay, so basically all sorts of man-in-the-middle attacks, where are they in the MITRE ATT&CK framework? And I was like looking and say, well, it really depends. And so there's a lot of stuff that the framework still needs to get more mature, but it does bring a lot of benefit. The fact that you have a common language in the industry is amazing. So we do align ourselves with the MITRE ATT&CK framework in the places that we can, and in the places that we can't, we basically
you do what you do.
Exactly.
Right.
But the way the scenarios work is the customer defines, what's important for him. We would help him. Both the system would actually give him all sorts of recommendation and help him find the critical assets, and obviously the customer success team will guide him. What are best practices. So, your databases is a simple example, but in many of the customers I see that they define the executives in the executive, how hard it is for an adversary to actually get to the executive team computers. So you define the targets, and we work from that.
Let me ask you, I see incredible value in the reachability analysis and visibility to target. I mean, we mentioned a minute ago point of sale and other things. Those are obvious use cases. But in situations where visibility or reachability is okay, but that there may be some application running that may or may not be properly configured, are you able to go sort of probe at the application level a little bit, or do you partner up with other tools for that?
So
how do I go deeper if I need to do some of that?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, in terms of application layer, what we'll do is on standard applications. So let's say you have WordPress, you have all sorts of common stuff. Then we do test them, test for configuration errors, test for vulnerabilities, stuff like that. But if it's an in-house development application, then that's basically where we stop. That's where we're telling you, okay, someone can actually
with some other
go and do either your internal red team or go and do just a dedicated testing for that specific environment. And I think that's also, just not just in terms of the testing. I think that in the organizations, usually it's also very, very different teams and different personas, people that are in charge of the infrastructure security versus the application owners. And so we'll test and show you how you can actually get until the devices, until the network, or we'll show you stuff in a known application. But if it's an in-house application that you developed, you need to test it separately.
That makes sense. Now, you and I were talking earlier a little bit about whether this type of simulation finds its way into the compliance frameworks, because I think we both agree that it's kind of there, but it's certainly not bullseye, because when the frameworks were written, this was a technology that hadn't really been invented yet. Well, what do you think when you take out your crystal ball and think in a few years, what's going to happen here?
In the future, I believe that those sort of tools are going to be helping and be part of the way you do the compliance. Think about it, for example, two types of things that compliance requirement usually require you is vulnerability management and penetration testing. So vulnerability management, what usually happens is they ask you, you have a vendor, you work with some kind of vulnerability assessment tool in-house, you're testing all the time and you're finding the vulnerability and you're patching and you're doing this continuously. And every once in a while you have an approved vendor that is coming to check if you're actually working correctly, if you're doing things right. Because we understand you cannot bring an external tester to audit and do the vulnerability management and your entire patch management process and all of that, every day. That's not reasonable. So you bring every once in a while to just verify that you're working correctly. On the other hand, in the penetration testing, what usually the compliance requirements today ask you is to go and do like once every 6 months, once every major change. That's another common thing, because there were no automation in that field. But today, as more and more tools are coming that can actually do the same thing that the penetration test, that the red team exercise do automatically, you will start having requirements telling you, okay, you need to do this automatically all the time in-house. And every once in a while, just like in the vulnerability management, you'll bring an approved vendor to verify that you're working correctly, that you're actually remediating the stuff, you're fixing things, you are using the tools properly. So I believe that will be the way the market will move.
Well, I hope you're right. That sounds like something that will be very helpful. Right now, enterprise teams are struggling so much. It's like every day, it seems to get worse, right? It doesn't seem like the defense is catching up much at all, to my heart.
I think, obviously, both the hackers and the defenders are making progress, but it's an
different rates.
It's an easier job for the adversaries. They only need to find one issue. They need to find a new technique, and the adversaries, they need to add more and more security controls. They need to learn more aspects. So it's a much harder task for them. So I think they're both running fast.
We did a cyber range exercise over at NYU. All press and writers and reporters are there, and they're all going around. There's in the defensive room, we have 40 or 50 students there working. In the offense room, 2 guys. And I was waiting for someone to say, Boy, 2 on 40, is that a fair
Is that
fight?
a
And
fair-
you and I would both say, yeah, that's about right. That's about
it's
right.
exactly because
Two
they
guys,
need to
40
find
defenders.
they need to find their one path where nobody looks.
Yeah.
And you need to actually make sure that you block all the different entrance, that you are monitoring everything, that the stuff that you cannot actually block, that you actually detect, that you'll catch them when they're trying to sneak in.
Yeah.
And it's a much harder job.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by. I know you know New York well. You went to high school in the D.C. area, so
Yep.
you know this,
Yep.
know this area. Well, as you guys make progress, you come back and share with us again?
Definitely.
Good. You're welcome here anytime.
Great. Thank
It
you
was
very much.
just wonderful seeing you.
Yep.
Great.
You too.
And we will see you next time.